Square, 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 square. It was only a matter of time before I sat back in the ranting seat. That was grammatically incorrect. Hey guys, what's going on? This is NGS back again for another video related to Final Fantasy VII Remake. I gotta say, it's pretty weird being able to get on camera and talk about the Final Fantasy Remake so soon after they've unveiled some new information. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are Square Enix fans, and you pretty much know how it goes by now. Whenever they reveal something related to Dragon Quest, Kingdom Hearts, Bravely Default, you guys know that we tend to not hear about that game for a rather long time. You'll get a new gameplay trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3, and by the time you hear about it again, well, you'll probably have kids. But Square Enix unveiled, of course, the new gameplay trailer for the remake, but they also came out with some news regarding the game's story. Yes, Final Fantasy VII's remake story has been up to discussion for the past couple of months. A lot of people were interested to see how it would develop. And Tetsuya Nomura did drop a couple of, hints here and there saying that the story would not progress as originally told in the game that was released almost 20 years ago, which of course was kind of expected, but we still didn't know exactly how it would happen. Until today, where Square Enix dropped a literal bombshell regarding the game's story. In a press statement sent out to various websites, I've got Nova Crystallis pulled up here, great source information on, various Japanese RPGs. If you guys haven't checked them out, make sure to check them out. But on the subject of Final Fantasy VII Remake story, Square came out and confirmed that the story will not arrive as a single package, but be released in multiple segments. Quote right here, Final Fantasy VII Remake will be told across a multi-part series, with each entry providing its own unique experience. Now, what does that mean? It means a lot of things. So first and foremost, this is very, very different, to say the least. This is something that is so unexpected, and I think a lot of people do not realize the impact that this has. A game like Final Fantasy VII Remake being told episodically. So first and foremost, I want to point out to the people who are thinking that this is going to go the style of a Telltale game, where they're going to release Final Fantasy VII Episode 1, Episode 2, a whole part series where you'll be able to buy a season pass. First and foremost, I do not think that Square is going to do that. When they say episodic, I think it means something completely different. But we'll talk more about that later. What does this mean for the industry? Well, first and foremost, this shows that, episodic games are not something that is done by the way of a smaller publisher, a smaller team, a smaller studio. The fact that we have a big budget AAA studio like a Square Enix releasing an episodic game based off of a highly popular, well-known, well-established JRPG franchise is a huge thing. And it's not just that it's Final Fantasy, but it's a main game. A main game that is a remake of the most popular Japanese game of all time. This is a huge thing. I think a lot of people do not understand the gravity of this decision. So on that front, it's kind of crazy. But what does it mean for the game's story? Well, first and foremost, it means that the story could unfold very differently than how we originally envisioned it. A lot of people were under the assumption that the story of Final Fantasy VII would be a shot-for-shot remake, where they're just going to take what they did in the original game and transition it over to the PS4 with fancy graphics and beautiful voice acting and all the good stuff that you expect. I didn't think that Square was really going to do that because, there's a lot more you can do with the story of Final Fantasy VII than just do a shot-for-shot remake. Since the game has come out, the story universe has exploded with various spin-offs, various side stories, from Dirge of Cerberus to Crisis Core. There is so much about Final Fantasy VII that has, been released since the original game. So what I was thinking, that if they're going to do this remake and have it encompass everything Final Fantasy VII, of course they're going to want to incorporate some of the stuff that happened with the inclusion of Zack and talking about his past in Crisis Core, which, I actually have right up here, and I'm going to pull it out because it has to be a visual reference. Crisis Core still remains to be my favorite game in the Final Fantasy VII storyline. It was just such a beautiful game. It had a great story that I thought that if they were going to bring it back, if not an HD remake, then they should probably include it in a, retelling of Final Fantasy VII story, which is what we have here. When you think episodic, you're thinking something like Telltale. You're thinking that, okay, we're going to release one part of the story here and then another part of the story there, and it's just going to continue and branch off every 3 to 4 months. I don't think that would really work well. Final Fantasy VII, JRPGs, RPGs in general, really don't lend themselves to that. because the only reason that works with something like a Telltale is because it's a closed off narrative. There's really not much gameplay going on outside of a few button clicks. There's not a lot of stuff that carries over outside of your, dialogue, context related choices. So how are you going to make that work for a JRPG? Well, that's one of the main reasons why I think they're not going to do it like that, because it wouldn't work. Unless you are going to make this game all about the story and you're going to close off and take away all of the open world aspects, the town, the interactions with the people there, buying items, stuff like that. I don't think it would work on that front if you're going to continue the story and keep it linear. But maybe it doesn't have to be linear. Okay? Now, hear me out. This may sound crazy and convoluted and not make any sense. I think when Square's talking about releasing the Final Fantasy story episodically, I think that they're going to use this opportunity to tell different parts of the Final Fantasy VII story. So sure, you can have one part that's talking about Cloud and his struggles here and how he gets introduced, but you can have another part that's dealing with Zack and some of the stuff that happens in Crisis Core. You can have another part of the story dealing with Vincent. You can have all these different things happening, but still call it the Final Fantasy VII story. Of course, it's not going to be the same as far as narrative structure goes, where it's going to be the same thing, but maybe this is what it means. Maybe it's going to be different, but still tell the same story in some weird way. Now, what does this mean for the actual gameplay fans of Final Fantasy VII? Does this mean that we're not going to get the traditional RPG focus where we're going to be grinding, using material, all that stuff that you expect in a Japanese RPG? Well, to be honest, I don't know what to say because it's still so early. They have not revealed anything on how this is going to be structured, how this is going to be priced, how it's going to affect the gameplay. We don't know anything. So it's kind of hard for us to really speculate on all of the negative ramifications that this is going to have for the story. So that's why I'm not really jumping on the gun and just going crazy saying, oh my god, they've ruined Final Fantasy VII. We don't know what's happening. Is there a possibility they can ruin the Final Fantasy VII story with this narrative structure? Of course, I'm not going to sit here and deny that. This is a very risky move. It is such a big gamble that they're taking. But I think it's not going to unfold like we think it is. And if it does and it ends up being horrible and something they never should have done before, the fans were right, I'll be right there with you guys with the pitchforks going over to Shinji Hashimoto's house and saying, you better stop freaking laughing at us. You got to stop this, because that dude, I don't know about y'all, but his laugh from PSX last year is such an iconic thing that you can use in any situation. But regardless of that, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. There you have it. Final Fantasy VII is going to be told episodically. Now, does this mean that it's going to be a bad thing? Possibly. Does this mean that the game is just going to be released in separate segments every month and encompass one linear story? Possibly. Could it mean they're going to be doing one segment Crisis Core HD, another segment Dirge of Cerberus HD? I hope not. And another segment talking about Tifa? I would love to see that. I would love to see Tifa in 1080p 60 frame per second goodness. I think all of us would. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see how this is going to affect the Final Fantasy VII story. Anyway, comment down below what you guys think about this. What do you think they should do? Is this going to be a very interesting move for Square? Do you think it's going to pay off for them in the end? Or do you think that they should go back to the traditional route of releasing the game as one whole package? Because that is a benefit that separates this from finally, having a final full 60, 70 plus hour experience. You can get this out faster if it means putting out one episode here, and then 3 to 4 months later, you get the second batch of episodes, which each of them being like 15 hours to 20 hours, something like that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. I'm NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.